Hey, this is Brandon McManus, Denver Broncos Super Bowl champion, and you're listening to The Scoop on OutScoop.com.
Welcome back to The Scoop, everybody. This is Season 4, Episode 34. Wow, we got a lot of good stuff for you today. John DeCarlo, Kyle Gauss, Matt Vender, Graham Foley. How you guys doing?
Good.
Graham's eating some munchkins that I provided.
Showing first.
Yeah. We have a ton of stuff to get into today. We're recording this on a Wednesday, a day after Aaron McKie was finally formally introduced as Temple's next head basketball coach. Best part about today's show is there's so much stuff here that you can only get here. We will mostly, we have some stuff from outtakes from the Aaron's breakout session. We was talking to a bunch of reporters there, but we've got some exclusive stuff from Marc Jackson, the former Temple center, exclusive stuff from Shizz Alston.
You may be asking yourself, but Kyle and John, I already listened to the Marc Jackson interview. Nope. It was chaotic. We interviewed him twice.
Yes.
So this is an exclusive.
Yes. So Kyle talked to him. I talked to him. I walked over to Kyle yesterday, and he's like, yeah.
He double dipped.
We double dipped there. So, hey, Mark was kind enough to talk to both of us. So we have 4 stories that went up on the site today, right?
Yeah, 4 today, 2 yesterday.
They say in the business, content is king, right?
They do.
Lots of content on the site today. Lots of stuff to digest. Again, a story on Marc Jackson. What else do we have up there?
Mark Macon. I talked to Mark Macon. He talked about Aaron, and Mark is set to join Aaron's staff in a role that's still to be determined.
Mm-hmm.
But he wouldn't confirm it yesterday, but wasn't able to talk about that just yet. But did talk a lot about Aaron and his thoughts on Aaron. From knowing Aaron as a kid that came in as a freshman, as a Prop 48 partial qualifier during Macon's senior year. So some interesting stuff from Mark. Check out the article on the site with some video and audio up as well.
We also have John Chaney up there. John Chaney held court yesterday because obviously, it's rare when John Chaney shows up nowadays. So all the Philadelphia media went to interview him. And then we have audio from Pat Kraft, Temple's athletic director. The first 60-70% of it you won't get anywhere else. Towards the end, other reports started showing up. But, yeah, some good stuff up there.
Yeah, and, of course, a couple of stories on Aaron himself that went up late last night. And in terms of exclusive content, more exclusive content for you, we will have some clips from Matt's interviews with Josh Pierre-Louis, who, of course, verbally committed to Temple last week. Big pickup for Temple. And a clip from his interview with Tai Strickland, who was transferring from Wisconsin. It appears that Temple is very much in the mix for him. Son of former NBA veteran Rod Strickland, who
played with Aaron,
formed a friendship there. There's a connection there. So let's get into this. Ton of stuff to get into. Some good mailbag questions, lots of audio. So years ago, Temple took a chance on Aaron McKie as a Prop 48 candidate, as Matt has already said. Now they're taking a chance on him again, bestowing the program to him. And there haven't been too many coaches over the past several decades. Aaron is the newest to take the reins now. Obviously, he's no stranger to the program as a player, as an assistant coach. But let's start with yesterday. Formal introduction, the newness of it all. How do you think it went? How do you think it came off?
I think Aaron hit it out of the park. Mm-hmm. No pun intended here, Graham. I think he, outside of, I think he was probably a little embarrassed towards the end. A lot of, sniffling and stuff like that. Once the emotions got out of the way, I think the emotions were raw and they were genuine, that he was kind of overwhelmed by the moment. He talked about how he didn't sleep at all the night before, and he's kind of just been up thinking about this. Once he actually got one-on-ones and talked about it, I think he said everything that Temple fans wanted to say. He said, we're going to be aggressive. Our goal is not to just say, hey, we play for Temple. Our goal is to win a national championship, and we're going to be striving towards that. He talked about how he wanted to make Temple to be the place to be if you're in Philadelphia to come play college basketball. I think what you saw there is what you're hoping resonates with recruits and boosters and alumni, where Aaron can kind of, for lack of a better phrase, right the ship and get Temple back to the way that it was 5, 10, 20 years ago. So I was encouraged. It was nice to see the people that showed up from Philadelphia support. You see Bill Ellerby out there. You saw John Chaney out there. You saw rumored members of Temple staff who aren't officially there but were fully clad in Temple gear.
Monty was announced today.
I don't think it's a secret. Jimmy Fennerty, which John Rothstein put out a week after we got.
After Matt broke it. So.
We've had that for a week. John Rothstein, Inquirer had it yesterday. John Rothstein put it up.
John Rothstein not giving anybody any credit? Shocking. I cannot stand his Twitter account. I cannot stand it.
Sincerely America.
Oh, if I have to read another one of those. And I know he has to know he's...
Well, he
has to know he's a character.
So he was on part of my take.
But still,
not to get off me, but he was on part of my take like 2 weeks ago, and he basically like acknowledged like, yeah, like I do these things knowing that like people are making fun of it and yada yada yada. And David Robertson just get a walk-off walk, so Graham's gonna be a sad little boy for a little while. All four guys to lose 9-8.
He's the only one who hasn't anyway.
But yeah, I every aspect of yesterday.
And Graham can focus on the scoop.
Once Aaron stepped up, I thought was all overtly positive.
Yeah, I thought Aaron said everything that people want to hear. I thought the fact that he just said, he said he didn't want to sound like a talking head, but he did bring up that the goal is to win the national championship. And I thought, that's what people want to hear. And I think it's good that same thing he told the players when they had their first practice on Monday. They had a little short workout. They're obviously limited right now with an NCAA cap. I think they can only work about 2 hours per week.
Which even that's kind of new. They used to just be done in
right.
the offseason.
Yeah. So that's not much of a break for them. They kind of get right back into it 2 weeks removed from losing to Belmont in the first 4. So Aaron certainly knows that he has his work cut out for himself. I think he knows that there's plenty of work ahead with recruiting and trying to build out the roster so he can play the way he wants to play. I thought it was interesting how John asked him about the matchup. And, he's talked about that before a little bit, but said, with the way the game's changed and the way guys can shoot, even the way bigs can shoot now, you can't go matchup zone 100% of the time. But he said, they might implement that a little bit here and there and go with some zone looks. So, overall, I thought Kyle said it best. I think he just came off as genuine and real. I think that was him, being himself up on the podium. And then, when we got him for about 15 minutes in a breakout session, I thought, he was as genuine and as honest as he could be. Also bringing up the fact that, when he first got released by the Sixers or got let go by the Sixers after Deck Collins left and Brett Brown came in, he took a year off from coaching, and then he talked to Dunphy, and basically was honest in saying like, hey, I wasn't so sure about getting into college coaching, just going off of what he had heard. So he was as honest as he could be there, and just saying he only had 1 foot in and 1 foot out, and then as the past 4 years or so have gone on with him being on campus and building relationships with these guys, he's obviously fallen in love or close to falling in love with the college game and molding these guys and helping these guys develop as 18-year-old kids.
And for those, I know a lot of people, probably us included, were a little critical of the whole head coach and waiting the year, the kind of what word am I looking for?
Transition.
Lame duck season under Fran Dunphy. I think yesterday actually kind of lent some credence to the value of that. It seemed like there was a lot of outside factors that factored into that. But I'm not sure if you get that press conference from Aaron McKie this time a year ago. I don't think he was fully aware of what he wanted the program to be. I don't think he was fully aware of what his goals were, what his plan was. I think this last year, which still resulted in the NCAA tournament, it was still relatively a successful season. I think this last year provided the opportunity for Aaron to kind of talk to his circle, talk to his people, talk to his advisors, and figure out exactly how he wants Temple basketball to be. Yeah,
and then the first part of it, it seems to be that the format of and we've had a lot of new coach press conferences, mostly on the football side of things, of course. It's the standard, Dick Englert speaks, Pat Kraft speaks, the new coach speaks, 10-minute
Jersey.
10-minute Q&A. The photo shoot with the great Joe Labolito, who's been here for a long time. Very, very nice man, good photographer.
Aaron is the first one in recent years to have his number on the jersey, though, instead of just like a generic number 1.
Also, a little tip of the cap to Larry Doherty, who apparently it was his idea to, up on the McGonigal Hall scoreboard, to have his numbers with the Sixers, 23 and 8 on the scoreboard in the year, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
so nice touch by Larry Doc. But yeah, it was that standard format of Aaron talking, opening statement, 10-minute time session from the media, and then the breakout. And the first part of it was really him just digesting all the emotions. And literally, like, everywhere he looked, he told the story about one of the guys from facilities pulling him aside and saying, hey man, if I have a son, I want him to turn out like you. And I don't think, I don't know, maybe I'm being naive. I didn't take it to be boastful. I took it to mean like he was just being very genuine about it. I think that's most of the time what fans are looking for in an opening press conference. They want to see energy, and they want somebody to be genuine. Aaron's very genuine. He's still, I'll say this too, anybody expecting him to be super, super flashy or boisterous, that's not him. Now, do I think he's going to inject more energy into the program? Yes. I think he did that yesterday. I think he said a lot of what people want to say, but he processed the emotions. I think all the right stuff was said about Fran Dunphy too. I know some people are like ready to move on, get me out of here, but he respects Dunph. He looked at him. He's like, I know you're hiding somewhere, and then he sees Bill Ellerby. Really got choked up about Bill Ellerby because this is really something for Aaron. He grew up on Delhi Street, which is literally just east of the football practice facility, right near 10th and Diamond. He grew up around there, was raised by his grandmother, and he's like, people counted us out. The NCAA used to count us out. This wasn't supposed to happen for me. So Bill Ellerby was huge in his life. So you literally had Bill Ellerby wheeling John Chaney in, like two of the most formative people in his life. So everywhere he looked, it was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to break down. Here's my wife and my 4 kids. Here's the high school coach that turned me into a man.
Here's Kyle Gauss.
Look at Kyle. Look at his hair. I'm just going to tussle that hair when I get out there. Where's Graham Foley? How come Graham Foley isn't here?
He had a
Class was more important than the Aaron McKie press conference. I applaud your dedication to your academic craft.
Thank you. I wish I wasn't there. I wish I wasn't in that class.
Sorry about that. I normally don't whistle that loudly. Anyway, but that first part of it was processing the emotions, and then the breakout, some more stuff, getting into what type of program they're going to be. And Kyle's story with the audio, it was more talking about the emotions and stuff, and then just obviously listening to those audio clips. And then what I wanted to try to talk about my story was, again, what's it going to look like? What's an Aaron McKie team going to look like? And he said, we're going to play with pace. We're going to space the floor. We have to defend better. And to defend better or to play with better pace, that ball's got to be coming off the backboard and off the rim and not going through it because you can't run.
Sure.
So, I think people, just needed to hear that. You guys mentioned the national championship thing. It might sound trite. If he doesn't win one, and it's no small feat if he does, it doesn't really matter. But that wasn't really articulated as much in the past. It was more vibe of we're appreciative of where we are. We need to work as hard as we possibly can. And yes, you'll hear Aaron say a lot of that. But the bit about him saying, "Hey guys," as you mentioned, Matt, we're not just showing up to practice, being proud to wear Temple University across our chest. We're in this to. He kept saying, "I play to win. I play to win," and people, kind of ready for that change. So, I think they pretty much nailed it. It is worth noting, we go to the draft horse before a final tip of the cap to Fran Dunphy, and this is Fran Dunphy through and through. Mm-hmm. We get to the draft horse. Kyle, Matt, and I decide we're going to have lunch before the press conference. We're sitting there. Who walks in but Fran Dunphy and a friend of his, a former colleague of his here at Temple University, Tim O'Rourke, former VP of Computer Services. They walk in. Dunph goes a few tables over, sits down. Walks over, shakes our hands. Oh, you guys are having lunch. Great day. It's a beautiful thing. We go over. We're done eating, and go to get the check. And our waitress says, "The man 3 tables over took care of your check. Don't worry about it." And he does this millions of times. So even on his last day and passing the torch, still
journalistically, should we accept it?
No,
he was already done. We aren't covering him anymore.
Yeah,
that was going way.
Ethically we cleared it, but
I would not have done that 6 months ago.
She would have. A really nice gesture on his part. But again, I think, did we expect this? No, but I think now, speaking back to your point, again, maybe Billy Lang goes in and does a really nice job at St. Joe's, but boy, are they getting eviscerated by certain people we know. But especially, they're literally just losing players left and right.
Sure.
Charlie Brown declaring for the draft, and it doesn't sound like Charlie's declaring to take the evaluation.
Yeah,
he's gone. Fresh Kimball wants to leave as a grad transfer. You're losing
Jared Bynum.
The Jared Bynum's gone.
There's rumors out there that Ryan Daly is contemplating.
Yeah, so they're again, I don't vilify them for wanting to make the change. I think anybody who wants to better themselves, you're always going to get criticized. We talked about that a couple weeks ago, but they've been ripped apart, up, down, left, and right. And now I think Temple does look good for the most part for how it transitioned people in and out. Pat, not that I took much to say, hey, I want to thank Fran Dunphy for this. But I think they handled everything as well as they could yesterday. Dunph was there, posed for some pictures with Janie and McKie. But, not like it would be his style anyway. But he wasn't there to kind of steal the moment or overpower it. But, I think they hit it out of the park. And now it's getting down to brass tacks. Okay, what's the roster going to look like? How are we going to play?
Yep.
How are we going to recruit, and so on and so forth. But we wanted to play a few clips for you here, sort of in a rapid-fire sequence. Play a couple of clips. Again, if you had the chance to listen to this last night, all of the audio from the press conference was up on the site. You can still go back and listen to it. But picked out about 4 or 5 clips here where Aaron's talking about certain things in that breakout session. First one we're going to play for you here is just him talking about his sideline demeanor. I asked him, what kind of coach are you going to be? And he's like, I've thought about that. So we'll play this one here and then react to it real quick on the other side, and we'll go through a few more clips for you.
Now, that's what I think about a lot. Like, am I going to be a guy? Most college coaches got their jackets off. Am I going to be a guy with the jacket off? Am I going to be this guy doing that? These players are too sensitive now to really jump on them on the court. So you'll probably, I watch Penny Hardaway when he's coaching. He's just as calm as he could be, but he's very competitive. And you rarely see him doing all, the pointing and what are you doing? He's just sitting there with his water bottle. And Coach Dunph. Just watching him and his demeanor, and I think it helps the guys with their focus and keeping them relaxed and being able to be productive out on the court.
How do you figure that? Because you came from a generation where it was like the guys all used to say you can't listen to what coach is saying. You can't listen to how he's saying. You have to listen to what he's saying. You guys eventually got that. Some didn't. Is today's generation capable of that, or do you kind of have to?
Some. The better players are, because they've been coached from a young age. I've had coaches that was in my face, but it never really, like Coach Cheney make me cry every other week. I could never do things right in practice. Go to my room, I would cry, come back, but I wanted to play, I wanted to win. So those things didn't distract me. And I never understood why. And he used to always say, son, you too nice. Son, you too nice. And when I got to the NBA and I watched some of the behaviors, being on the NBA team, and I said, wow, they did right by me, teaching me the right way. So that's what I want to be able to provide for my guys. So when basketball, wherever level that they go to, they're going to say, man, Temple did right by this kid.
You still want them to be tough, though. You kind of
absolutely. Now, I was a nice guy, but I was a warrior. I was tough. On the court, I was tough, but I was more mentally tough than physically.
Right. So there you have Aaron just talking about. It sounds like he wants to be the what he believes will be the perfect blend of I can't be to these guys as hard as John Chaney was on me, but I'm also not going to be soft either.
I completely agree. I mean, I think you'd be naive to think that the 1980s, 1990s guards are the same as the 2019 guards today, where there is a different way to coach these kids than what they might have been used to 20 years ago. But no, I think he wants to have that blend where, I feel like this is always a football term. I'm going to coach you hard, but I'm going to love you hard. Things like that. I did find it funny that he was just like, the good players can take coaching. Though, there's some guys out there that I'm sure we can point out in the past that maybe don't take coaching too long.
Yeah, and I kind of took that almost as like him saying his in-game style will be a whole lot different how he is than the practice setting. I think in the practice setting, you can get on guys, and that's kind of where, you point things out and say, hey, this can't happen again. So if you get on guys in practice, the hope is that it doesn't really happen during the game. So, I think in practice, if you do get a chance to see practice, I think you'll see him get on guys plenty. But then during the games, I think he'll kind of be more laid back. And, he mentioned how Penny is. I'm sure Penny gets on his guys plenty during practice, but then during the games, he can kind of just sit back and, let the guys play. So that's kind of what I'd expect to see from Aaron in the games.
I thought it was interesting that he did kind of reference Fran Dunphy's coaching style in games as something almost like he wants to portray, which is one thing that I think fans more than anyone have really gotten on Fran about, just almost showing that you care. So I'll be interested to see the balance where, I'm sure fans don't want to see any kind of laid-back Fran Dunphy-esque reactions, but you still don't want to be overbearing.
You want to see him throw a water bottle on the court?
Yeah, right.
Ooh. So this next clip we're going to play, we asked him, you said earlier in the day that you want the program to matter again. And again, I think he put just the right touch on it. and saying, like, we want to matter again. And I think, again, for what it's worth, fans need to hear that. We want to matter means we got to get to the second weekend of the tournament and beyond. For a while, this Temple come up in the national conversation. Yeah, you beat Tennessee, you beat Georgetown, you beat Duke. And I'm not trying to poo-poo some of the wins that they had or some of the tournament appearances they had. But we know what that means. So here's Aaron talking about, just kind of elaborating on that more. You said you want to matter. Getting back to the second weekend of the tournament, is that what that means to you? Is that what you were getting at?
You said we want to matter. And I'm assuming part of that's a reference to like getting back to that second weekend of the tournament. How much does that drive you?
A lot. Just watching the games and watching the guys, the highs and lows of the emotions. You're in the locker room and the team is winning. You on the other side of it, if a team is losing, just the highs and lows. That's what you want to be a part of. When you see those guys celebrating, you see those guys cutting the nets down. I've been a part of that. We went to the Final 8. I've been a part of celebrated teams, and I want our guys to have that because to this day, this university still talks about, the team that I was on that went to the Final 8. Actually, I was on 2 teams, but they don't count me in the record books. It was my year that I had to sit out, but that's another story.
Right, so in there, I think Aaron's more or less saying we feel like we don't want to be left out anymore. We want to deal with that, and even if we're dealing with the pain of a tournament loss, we want it to happen in those bigger venues and not the first round of a conference tournament and then sweating it out, right?
Yeah, no, again, exactly what Temple fans have been screaming into the air for the last however many years. I think it's exactly what you would expect him to hear. His goal, if your goal is to win a national championship, your goal isn't to lose in the first round of the NCAA tournament.
I thought it was interesting him referencing the 2001 Elite Eight that keeps getting talked about because I think there's plenty of students my age who, some of them didn't even grow up in Temple basketball, just kind of chose Temple and now are into the sports teams that never knew Temple as like a perennial program. They only kind of know them as the last few years of just basic mediocrity, really. And I think that bringing that back is something that obviously fans forever have wanted, but that Temple students, a lot of them don't even know. So that would be something really exciting to see come back, that kind of energy.
I don't think he was talking specifically about 2001. I think
he was talking about
his Elite Eight appearances. But again, you make a great point, which is again, you have so many people that we come in contact with and be like, I've never really thoroughly enjoyed like a deep run in tournament basketball. And again, I know that I don't expect them to get to the Elite Eight every year. I don't even expect them to get to the Sweet 16 all the time. But that will dovetail nicely into this next clip here because Aaron was asked by another reporter. The question was, what advantages do you have over other schools in the city? Which is a good question because, again, I mean, St. Joe's and LaSalle should not really be the benchmark. Villanova should be the benchmark, and of course in the conference, UCF, Houston, UConn getting better, Wichita, Cincinnati, all these programs, they should be the benchmark. But he was asked about what advantages Temple might have over other schools in the city. And it ends up with Aaron talking about, like, hey, man, we want to be a destination. So here's Aaron talking about that piece of things.
I would say this university itself, with the support of the president and athletic director, the resources that we have, I think we got outstanding facilities. And for some of you who've been around, watch this program grow, watch these facilities grow. It's second to none. I've been to other schools around the country, and we stack up with the best of them. We had a university that's centrally located, so it's a fun place to be. But on the basketball side of it, I want it to be the place to be. People go, I'm going to the Temple game tonight. How we do that, I think winning cures all of that. You got to win basketball games, and the people will come. It's a different dynamic. Honestly, in the city of Philadelphia, when it comes to sports, you got to decide where you want to spend your money at. Am I going to spend it with the Sixers, Flyers, Phillies, Penn, Villanova? You can go down the list. Where are you going to spend your money at? And you wouldn't expect people to want to spend their money at all the sporting venues. But if you win, they'll come.
So again, more stuff that I think is just music to the ears of Temple fans, I would think, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think he's basically said pretty much everything that Temple fans want to hear. I mean, but the fact that I thought it was interesting, just his view on trying to get people back in the gym. I think it's going to be a process of trying to get people back in the Leah Course Center. Mm-hmm. And we've been, you look just probably the last 15 to almost 20 years of Temple basketball, it's been, I mean, since the league, of course, that are open, I would say you never really had that big of a draw. I mean, I don't think there was
early
ever,
on.
Maybe then.
98 to 2000.
It's been 20 years.
But yeah, other than
It's
that,
been
you're right,
20
19,
years.
close
So-
to 19, 20 years, where you had some sellouts, but early on there was an early buzz. Obviously, the first game against Fresno State, you had some early games against, like, it was a game against Maryland, where Maryland had Steve Franchise, blended them together. Steve Francis, Lonnie Baxter, and those guys. But you're right, yeah. I mean, it's been a long time where
Yeah.
it's been just a constant buzz.
Right. I look back at, like, even the Georgetown game and what was that, maybe,
2010.
2010, yeah, that sounds about right. And, you know, they beat Georgetown. Georgetown was, I think, ranked number 8 in the country at that point. They were a top 10 team. It was a Thursday night game, 9 o'clock tip, I believe, on national TV. And they probably drew under 7,000. And that, you know, that's the type of stuff you were dealing with. I mean, that wasn't a Wednesday night St. Bonaventure game. But, you know, they're going to be fighting that for the next few years. And there's going to be a lot of the portion of that fan base that hasn't been showing up these past 5-7 years. It's gonna take more than just a few wins to get them back, and I think Aaron knows that. You know, over time and with winning, I think they'll start to come, but you know, it's definitely going to be a process.
So in this next segment, here's where Aaron starts talking again about, you know, we want to be conference champions, but we want to be national champions. We look at the short-term stuff, but we look at the short-term stuff with the long-term stuff in mind. And again, probably more stuff that's going to make Temple fans nod their head and say, all right, been waiting to hear this. Of course, words can only get you so far, but again, here's Aaron just, you know, talking about the big picture.
We want to win. We want to be conference champions, but we'll talk about the short-term goals with the long-term goals in the picture as well. So that's I play to win. I play to win. I didn't want to sound like a talking head up here and we're going to win a national title this year, and it takes time. But that's the goal. We had a practice yesterday, and I told him the goal is to win a national title, not to come in here and put on a practice uniform and say, hey, look at me. I play for Temple University. We play to win. So every time we step out on the floor and we're competing, we are playing to win with the national title in the back of our mind.
All right, so finally, and again, there's a ton to listen to from yesterday from Aaron's press conference. Again, if you've missed it, I would definitely encourage you to go back and take in as much of it as you can. Both sessions, his opening statements, his Q&A, all 3 sessions, I should say, in the breakout. So the one last clip we're going to play for you here is, I wanted to ask him about Allen Iverson. Sounds cliche, but I had to ask him about AI. And Aaron says here is like, I think one of the reasons they probably didn't have him there, who knows if they were going to be able to get him. It just would have been a complete circus sideshow. And that's no shot on AI, but it just would have been something else to have him there. But he said Aaron says here in this clip, like, man, he's just as emotional as I am. So here's Aaron talking about his relationship with Allen Iverson. I followed up and said, there were a lot of guys on that team. And he's like, well, it wasn't just me, but what was it about you? Why did you guys connect? And what did you talk about? So here's Aaron talking about his relationship with Hall of Famer Allen Iverson.
That's my guy. And it would have been difficult for me to have him here because he's just as emotional as I am. But we always talk about life, man. Sports is one thing, and our guys, they look up to him. But a lot of the conversations we had was just talking about life, and he always made himself vulnerable to me. And that's what I respected about him the most. And he was open and honest, and that's the part of him a lot of people don't get an opportunity to see that I wish they could. But it's not for everybody.
What was it about you? Because there were, like Eric Snow maybe could have been that guy to him, but it was you.
It wasn't just me. It was a lot of the guys.
But but he really would bring your name up like several times in that one clip. Aaron McKie. What do you think it was about you that made him just click with you like that?
Well, I would say it's the same thing that our guys would say, is that I'm brutally honest. I'll be transparent with you. I'll be honest with you, and I'll tell you the truth. And I would expect you to do the same with me. I'm not a gimmicky guy. People time is important to me and precious, and so is mine. So I don't like to BS people. I like to be honest with them. I think that's the way we all should be in society.
All right, so there's your Allen Iverson fix. Aaron talking about AI and how they clicked and why they clicked, and Aaron just talking about wanting to be brutally honest and hoping that will resonate with how he does business and how he works with his players. So as we mentioned before, both Kyle and I unknowingly both talked to Marc Jackson. So we have one Marc Jackson story up on the site right now, which you can read and listen to Kyle's conversation with Marc. And then later on, just in case you didn't have enough Marc Jackson content, I went up and talked to him too. Some people who graduated in the late 90s in that era saw Marc play in person. I still think he's one of the best big men in Temple history. Lavoie Allen, of course, was the program's all-time leading rebounder, but Marc was a fantastic big man, played his freshman year at Virginia Commonwealth, was part of that 5-5 recruiting class, and kind of got pushed to the back burner because Temple was really trying to get, John Cheney was really trying to get Rasheed Wallace, who of course went down to North Carolina. Marc Jackson transfers up to Temple, has 2 really good years, leaves after his junior year, and now he's still in the area, runs his own AAU program. So I was able to grab Marc and just talk to him about what Wednesday was like for him, what it was like to see Aaron and take all this in. And so here's that entire conversation with Marc Jackson. So we'll give this a listen and react to it on the other side.
What's it like just to take this in and see this? You know how important this program has been to you and everybody here. What's it like to just see Aaron get this opportunity now?
It's an incredible feeling. It's a great day, not just in Temple basketball, but in Temple University and the city of Philadelphia. A homegrown guy who born and raised near this campus like I was, and it's just good to see him come back to really give back to. I don't want people to think he's just giving back to Temple basketball. He's giving back. He's teaching. A coach is a teacher. Mm-hmm. And for him to get a knowledge that he has, not just of him personally, but he's molded by so many great coaches that imagine what's in his brain. Mm-hmm. So imagine what's going to come out and go to the next generation. I just think it's a great experience, and I'm real proud of him.
What's possible for him here in this program now? Because a lot of people are saying, like he said, we want to matter, and I said to him, it's probably a reference to you want to get back to that second weekend of the tournament. It's been a long time. You were here when the program was like that.
Yes.
What's possible for him now as a coach?
Well, first thing, here's the interesting thing. Aaron has always been a ferocious competitor. Right. He's always outthought people with his brain, but he's always been an incredible human being. Mm-hmm. So with that said, even from his time all the way in Portland, he has people that know him all around America. Mm-hmm. So now I see the first thing is better recruits. Mm-hmm. I think skilled, more higher caliber recruits will get kind of sent his way. Mm-hmm. Meaning guys where we couldn't recruit certain places, people know who Aaron was because of the legacy he left and because he's just a great human being. Mm-hmm. And people with his knowledge and his background, so people want to have their kids play for people like that. So I really believe that it's important to understand that he is going to do good things here because of who he is as an individual.
How much does his story matter to you and mean to you? You went through the same thing. Yes. I mean, you left a year early so you could take care of your mother, from what I remember. Mm-hmm. Played overseas, got into the league the hard way. Mm-hmm. When you hear him talk about his story and growing up around here, you grew up around here, went to Roman. Mm-hmm. You were the guy that everybody forgot about because everybody.
Raised on campus, yeah.
And everybody, I know you used to joke with Coach Cheney and saying you forgot about me because he was recruiting Rasheed Wallace, and then you transferred back and turn yourself into an NBA player. But when you hear him talk about his story and what it means to grow up around here and make something out of the opportunity, does it resonate with you a little bit more because you went through a similar thing?
Of course, yes. Born and raised, I was born in Temple Hospital, raised on Temple's campus. For me, it's been remarkable because I know where I could have been, mm-hmm. and I know where I am now. Mm-hmm. And it all started from that day I was born in Temple Hospital, mm-hmm. and being in this environment, being raised in this gym similar to Aaron. I worked at Summer League games, working out in this gym as a young child, and then even when I was a pro, working out here, and I know what this school has done for me. So for me personally, it's been an amazing feat, and I resonate in Aaron because I am Aaron. We both are very similar. We both have similar upbringings, and to see where he is now is just a wonderful thing.
You have your own AAU team now, right?
AAU program, yes.
What's it like? What's it like getting into coaching? And obviously you're doing the TV thing, breaking down Sixers games. What's it like to have just a hand in coaching now?
It's great. It's great. It's the ultimate give back because and Aaron, because Aaron, 3 kids play for me, so it's important to realize that. The phrase that kids are soft now. Kids are not soft. The parents have changed the way they did things. That makes the kid ultimate mindset what it is. So I'll give tough love. I make sure I'm hard, firm, but I'm fair. And like the old famous boxing referee. But for me to get this opportunity to teach the youth to bring up the next generation of youth. My whole goal is to make them the best human beings on the planet, but also make them coachable for any coach in the world. And I think I'm doing that.
What are your memories of just, I mean, I'm sure you have a ton of them, of playing here. I remember when you guys played here and the line was wrapped around the building 4 times, and Marcus Camby's coming in here and you're trying to post him up and he's making you shoot threes out here and stuff. And how do you explain that time to people when there was every night there was a buzz around here?
Because of tradition and a great coach brung that. Brung people around, got people wanting to see us. And it was just Jim was always rocking, and I like the fact, even though we had the Lear Court Center, this place is still here. I love they might have added some paint on the floor, but it's still the same court. So I really like that, and I really think it's good because history was in this building. You know, if I stayed my senior, I'd have played in League courts, but I didn't. So for me to be here, no matter who's playing against, this gym was always packed. There was never a dull night. There was never a dull crowd. And they're coming because people want to see good things happen. They want to see great basketball, and they got it.
What did you know about him when you came to play here? You transferred. What did you know? I mean, I'm sure you heard about Aaron and Eddie and stuff like that. What did you hear about him? And do you remember the first time that Aaron?
Aaron, okay, this is my coach.
Yeah.
Oh, what I knew about Aaron, I knew Aaron because we had the same coach that brung us, that took us in.
Yeah.
John Harnett, when we were younger, was our first teacher of the game before we got to high school. And we both, and he was telling me a story about Aaron and what Aaron did, how Aaron worked, and things like that. Because Aaron's a few years above me, and I knew it was something that I could relate. So just hearing about his work ethic, but he was a good dude, no matter what. Like the story he told about the employee that works here, who gave him that's Aaron. That's Aaron. Anyone could tell you that. Anyone could say that, from even before Coach Ellaby, the late John Harnett, to when he was assistant coach with Doug Collins. You know, anyone can tell you that's who Aaron is. And when you got a good guy with basketball knowledge and basketball background, people want to help you out.
How much does the city miss John Harnett? He's kind of like the forgotten, because a lot of people maybe didn't get a chance to meet him. It's like almost like the original AAU coach who wasn't really in it for himself.
Exactly.
How much does the city miss him? How much has city basketball changed with him not around? Because he was a guy
when he left us, when John Harnett left us, many people had their hand in the pot.
Right.
And many people started plucking kids off for the wrong reasons because they wanted to do something for these kids that benefit them personally as individuals. So when John was the one that kept those guys at bay, because those guys knew not to cross the line with John. Even if a guy that wasn't in John's grasp, if you knew of a kid that was being misled by somebody, John would say something. And not just John, it was Claude Gross, Coach T, T. Parham. I mean, those guys, they knew who John was and they respected him, and they all had the same thing to say about youth, to hopefully give them a way out.
Last question for you. It looked like there were times where you were practices here and you'd pull Aaron aside and talk to him. It looked like, he got better this year. I mean, the Random game they lost, he was from 16 and 19, and he looked like he really progressed. What did you say to him, and how would you coach a big man today, where the game's changed, the role of the big man has changed? What do you try to instill in those guys?
My thing is be coachable. First, as the game changed, yes, there's a lot of three-point shooting, but if you didn't tell me, if you got Shaquille O'Neal, he wouldn't be doing the same thing.
Right.
You know what I mean? So people say, the game's changed. That's not true. If you can play, you can play. The more skills you have, the more versatile you have, the better. But if you can get down that box and you're mentally strong enough to think and prepare and learn, you can still be effective. And I tell Big Earn, and everybody's skill set is different. Justin's a different kind of player. But Justin still has the capability to do some damage. And I keep telling Justin, make sure you're not just a pick and dive kind of player. And why is the majority of big men nowadays pick and dive? People say, because the game changed. No, because they haven't been taught the games. They can't do nothing else. How difficult is it to tell a guy, set a pick and roll and catch an alley-oop?
Yep. You still do it, yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's different. But if you get a guy, you teach him footwork, and not just from the score, for him to be able to create a double team, a mismatch, to kick out for an open shot, it's still being effective. So.
One more question for you. When you look back at your career, what was your first conversation like? Well, what probably wasn't your first, but you go to Virginia Commonwealth, you're like, this isn't working out for me. But if you could tell somebody the story of how you got back here and transferring back here and what it meant to you.
First day I left. First day I got on college campus, I knew Virginia Commonwealth wasn't a place for me. The school was a beautiful, beautiful school. But I knew I wanted to be back. I wanted to be bigger and better. And even though I had an okay year until I got injured in my freshman year, I knew I was going to be good.
Right.
Because I knew kind of dedication I put in, I bet on myself. So when I wanted to come at the Temple, I knew it was the right decision. It was interesting because when I was looking at going back home, even though at that time Coach Cheney had a plethora of big men, I knew I could have been good. So I think I wanted to come there, outwork those guys, and do good things. So when I came back here, our coach Chase, when I come home, he said, "Come on back. That's about 40."
You were part of that.
Fab Five.
You guys Fab Five. Mm-hmm. It was you, Alvin Williams, Jason Lawson,
Tyrone Weeks, and Rasheed Wallace. Yep.
So the one of the many things that Marc talks about there is that Marc and Aaron have similar stories. You know, Marc, as he talked about there, was born at Temple Hospital. Temple was a big part of his life. Marc left a year early because he wanted to be able to provide for his mom. So I think he was drafted in the second round by Golden State, played a year in, I think, Turkey, or a couple years in Turkey, then got into the league the hard way. And, of course, as you might see or hear of Marc doing some post-game stuff with the Sixers. But we talked about, again, some of the things you'd want to hear. He's like, I think Aaron will be able to get better recruits. His name is known nationally. You know, people will know about him. I think Marc, as much as anybody, is just excited to have Temple get back to what it was before. But again, I think he can relate to Aaron because they have some similar stories, some similar things in their storylines in life. All right, so another interview we were able to get yesterday was with Shizz Alston. Shizz, of course, was the leading scorer, almost became the conference player of the year this year. Of course, the next steps for Shizz will be playing in the Reese's All-Star College game, then heading to Portsmouth from April 17th to the 20th. You're going to hear Shizz talk about next steps for him, but you're going to hear him talking here about just being around Aaron. I mean, he's been around Aaron his whole life. Shizz's dad, Levan, played at Temple, like Aaron, played it at Simon Gratz High School. But you'll hear Shizz talk here about why Aaron was an important piece of him coming to Temple. I don't think he's really talked about that too much in the past. So here's Shizz talking about what Aaron McKie has meant to him, not just as the assistant coach on the staff, but what he's meant to him over the course of his life and how he was a factor in him coming to Temple.
What is this like for you to see Aaron get the opportunity? Now, obviously, you're no stranger to being coached by him, but everybody wants to know, okay, what was he like on the bench? Is he exerting himself a little bit more, but not wanting to get in Dump's way too much? Did you see like a little bit of a progression in Aaron throughout the year, or was he kind of always the same and just saying, hey,
no, I seen him, he was more involved, a lot more outspoken, but, for me, just knowing him all my life, I was a testament to what he can be. He was on me a lot just because he knew what I was capable of, and he was more comfortable with me. So I just think that's how he's going to be with a lot of guys. He's hard on them, but he loves you. And tough love, he's always going to get you in the gym, things like that.
Do you have any stories? Like if somebody were to say, tell me a story about Aaron McKie, whether it was like when you were a little kid or anything.
I know, but so the summer or the little break he had between Sixers and Temple, he used to come to Haverford School all the time. We used to work out every day for about 6-7 months, and he used to work out all the time. And I told him, we were talking about college offers, and I always leaned on him for those type things. And he was just like, were you looking at going? I'm like, I like Temple, but I'm not sure. And he's like, I said, if you go to Temple, I'll definitely, I'll almost certainly come. And he's like, yeah. And I was like, yeah. And then he took the Temple job, and I came. So that's the best story.
So you said to him, if you take a job on staff,
I said, I'm 100% will come to Temple if you do that. And
so you had a hand in this. You guys both had a hand in it.
Yeah, hopefully. I like to say I had a hand in it. But
what? Georgetown, Notre Dame, Penn State,
Purdue, Marquette, Seton Hall. So.
What do you think's possible for this program? I mean, obviously you're moving along, hoping to play professionally. What's possible for next year's team?
I think the sky's the limit. I just think the biggest thing is a guy filling the point guard role. But if you have that, you got guys like Nate and Q and Josh Pierre-Louis, Justin Hamilton, guys, Alani Moore. I think the sky's the limit, and with the way that he wants to play, I think the team will definitely have a chance of going far.
What's it like for you to watch? Because everybody he's talking about. You know who Bill Ellerby has played for.
Right.
He's maybe if he were to talk about John Barnett, you know who John Barnett is. You know this history as well as anybody else. Do you get emotional thinking about this stuff too when he's talking about all these stories and all these people?
Definitely, because I was here when he used to come back in the summer times and work out, and Coach Chaney was coaching. So I've been here from the start of it, and just to see him get this opportunity, it means a lot to me, just because I know how hard he worked for it and how much this place means to him.
What's next for you? Obviously, you got the senior game, and then that's just proving yourself and hoping you get a spot in the NBA. What kind of feedback you get, and what are people telling you in terms of your future?
I have. So after the Reese's game, I have to go to Portsmouth. So I go to Portsmouth for 17th to the 20th, and then that's when the grind starts. And a lot of people have been saying, I can get into the second round. It's a weaker draft. I'm an older guy, but I showed a lot this year. So they were saying, the second round is definitely possible for me. That's what I'm trying to do, get in the second round. If I play really well, hopefully sneak into the first. But second rounds, they said, is very possible.
What do you think you need? Because every single mock draft comes out, everybody gets picked apart. What are you hearing that people think you need to work on, or are there misconceptions about the game?
Nah, it's not misconceptions. I can do a lot of things. Play on the ball, I showed that. Play off the ball. The biggest thing, probably just defense. In the NBA, they like guys who can guard 1, 2, and 3 positions. So if I can show that I can guard and pick up guys full court, things like that, I think I'll have a chance. And Coach McKie always tells me it only takes one team to like you. Right. So that's what I'm trying to do.
Is there a guy on next year's roster that maybe you think is going to take a big leap from where he was this year to where he could be next year? Anybody that you see kind of really starting to turn the corner?
I think Justin will. I think Justin, this summer, the way that Coach McKie's going to push him and our strength program, he gets some more pounds on him. I think he'll definitely, be a 15-point scorer, 10-rebound type of guy. And I also think Alani Moore, if he gets the opportunity to play point guard, he won't score a lot, but he can help Nate and Q, score points.
So I think there are a couple other things that I think were noteworthy that Shizz mentioned there beyond Aaron. I asked him, you could hear there, maybe a player that you think is really ready to turn the corner. He mentions right away Justin Hamilton. We've mentioned, I believe we've mentioned on previous podcasts that they are definitely planning on getting a new weight room in, hiring a new strength coach, and a lot of people talk about that's something we need. Shizz mentions that right away. Is we can get some weight and get some bulk on Justin Hamilton. Everybody, we've talked about this in the past, everybody was excited about him. It was just faith-based talk, really, and then over this past season started to show it. So some interesting stuff there from Shizz.
I thought that was really deliberate of Shizz, too, because I feel like that's the number one concern for everyone in the Temple fan base. They know they need a center. They know Justin's the only one that's really there that can take the step up, and I think he's smart enough to know that's what he should have said at that point. And
we'll probably get into this in the mailbag, too. I mean, Justin might be... he can play with his back to the basket. He's shown he can do that, but he's still probably more of a stretch four. We'll talk about this more in the mailbag, but Damian Moore was there yesterday. There's been some speculation, does he stay? Does he go? He was there.
Sounds like both Moores will be sticking around.
Yeah, and again, there's a mailbag question about that, but I think if you have a chance to further develop Damian Moore in his final year, you need all the post players you can get. So let's shift over to talking about recruiting impact, and we've seen it already. So last week, of course, Temple gets a big piece of its 2019 class with Josh Pierre-Louis committing. So that's a big thing for Temple. Obviously, they're getting a guard who can get to the rim, who can score, who can distribute. Matt talked to him last week. That story's been up on the site for the past 2 days. Matt, just your general impressions of your conversation with Josh, and he put so much of it out there on social media already. He wants to play with his brother and stuff like that. But what kind of a sense did you get from him just in your conversation with him?
I thought it was interesting. We had heard some stuff, especially earlier when he was being recruited, about how maybe he didn't want to play with Nate. And maybe he wanted to kind of go out and do his own thing and get out of the area, so he committed to UNLV. And then when, UNLV coach gets fired, it seemed like, Temple was there for him, and he went out to see them play in Dayton in the first four. And I saw him out there, and, I think I even said to Graham, I was like, hey, that's interesting, he made the trip. Even though, he said, and he put it, it was in the story, was at least 10 home games and watched every other game on TV. So, he was following the team closely all year, mainly for his brother, Nate. But also, I think, just trying to, see, hey, would I be able to fit in with these guys? And, he knows a lot of these guys personally already, So I think it'll be a smooth transition for him, just being familiar with the team already. You would see him after games at Leocoris playing with his little brothers, and shooting around on the floor afterward, but he, and you'll hear it in the clip, but he basically said, it was never that they didn't want to play together. It was more so that, he had thought that Temple was kind of doing their own thing, and he had, some other schools in the mix. And keep in mind, Temple back in September, they're chasing after Dante Scott, they're chasing after Seth Lundy, they're chasing after Noah Fernandez. All those guys obviously, have ended up elsewhere, but it was kind of just a thing where Temple had some other guys on their radar. Not sure where Josh was on the board exactly, but I think both sides kind of were doing separate things, and now he kind of fell into their laps almost with the UNLV situation, and Temple obviously with their scholarship situation, with their need at point guard, I think that they were in a position where they had to take him, and I think he'll prove to be a good get for them over these next 4 years.
All right, so here's a piece of Matt's conversation with Temple's newest recruit, Josh Pierre-Louis.
How soon after you decommitted from UNLV did you know that Temple was the right fit? Like, when did it click?
About a week and a half, 2 weeks after the shot.
How much, if at all, did Nate have to push you to come?
Actually, he didn't. He was just being a big brother. He was just telling me to keep my head up, and he was just telling me to make the best decision. He was never persuading me to change it. He was just always telling me to make the best decision. Was there a time where you thought maybe you didn't want to play with Nate, or did that change at all recently? It was never that. No, it was never that. Never we didn't want to play with each other. It was just at the moment, was that the right fit? I didn't know what was going on. Maybe it wasn't the right fit at that moment. But as the time's going on, I feel like now, me and Nate, we can get back to the NBA, join them again next year. So.
Mm-hmm. And so Matt also this week got Tai Strickland. Now Tai Strickland is from the Tampa area. The son, as we mentioned before, the son of former NBA vet Rod Strickland, played his freshman year at Wisconsin, other than a 14-point game early in their non-conference schedule, played sparingly. If you watch his high school film, and granted highlights are what they are, if Temple is looking to get out and run and get some guys that are athletic, you see some of what Tai Strickland flashes. You see some plays where he's chasing guys down, weak side defense, or coming behind on the break and pinning the ball up against the board. Maybe he helps him at point guard there. So, Matt, what was, it sounds from what you reported like Temple's in a potentially pretty good spot with him.
Yeah, I mean, and there is the fact that Texas Tech is in the picture. They're still playing right now, so I think he might be in a little bit of a wait and see with them. Once they're done playing, you might get a better idea of how serious their interest is, if he'll actually have a spot with them next year. So he still has some stuff to sort out, but Texas Tech is probably, the other big program that you might have to watch out for with him. But right now, I think Temple is in a good spot with him. Aaron obviously played with Rod Strickland. Aaron was drafted to the Trailblazers, played with Rod, actually during the prime of Rod's career. I think he averaged almost 19 points a game. And those were the best years of Rod's career and, the beginning of Aaron's NBA career. So they overlapped for a few years in Portland, and they built a relationship, still have a relationship to this day. So it sounds like right now Temple is very much in the mix there. Monty Ross has been involved in his recruitment already. So, Monty Ross was just announced today as we're recording this on Wednesday. He was just announced officially as the associate head coach. And he's already involved in recruiting and making himself at home here. So right now I would say Temple's in a good spot with Strickland, but would wait to see until things shake out with Texas Tech, and then we'll have a better idea. But this certainly seems like a guy that would be almost Will Cummings-esque in that he's going to be able to get to the rim for you. He's going to be able to guard. He's fast. He can shoot it a little bit. So I think he will have to sit out a year. So that's another thing. He won't unless for somehow he receives a waiver, which would seem unlikely. He'll sit out next year and then have 3 years of eligibility left. But did show some flashes and some small glimpses at Wisconsin, but obviously was behind some guys there and didn't really get much of a look. But now I think Temple has as good of a chance as anybody at landing him. Now they just have to sort how they're going to hand out the 2 scholarships that they have to work with right now.
And as promised, here is a clip from that conversation between Matt and Tai Strickland.
They've shown a lot of interest in me. I plan on getting down there for a visit. They've given me a couple dates. I haven't really decided on when I'll get down there, but I've talked to Coach McKie very often and Coach Monty Ross as well. My dad's just attested to the type of guy Coach McKie is, and that basically says a lot to me. He's an NBA guy. He knows what it takes to get there, and that's my highest goal.
So, maybe this is part of what Marc Jackson's talking about, right? Maybe saying, hey, if something shakes loose, maybe this is a situation where Rod Strickland calls up Aaron and is like, hey, my son's looking for a place to go. I thought of you, That's not happening maybe that's not happening as much with some other guys that you bring in here, and maybe that's part of, Aaron. It's funny, you talked, Kyle, last week about
I say a lot of things, John.
you do say a lot of things. With Jimmy Fennerty, you're like, hopefully you buy early, like he's like a stock, and you invest. Aaron talked about that yesterday, talking about himself. Like, didn't he made some sort of stock reference, right? So maybe that's part of your investment that you're getting with Aaron McKie is that, again, like somebody transfers. I imagine that they will probably get, not that they did not get unsolicited stuff from transfers. We would be intellectually dishonest to say that didn't happen. And I'm sure that there were guys that came through. Dumpf was like, I don't know. I don't think you can help us. This is not a fit. It's not a fit. And I'm sure Dumpf was brutally honest with a lot of guys, too. I want to be fair there. But I think Aaron's going to get his share of unsolicited pitches where people will be like, Aaron McKie, he played for the Sixers. Oh, he played in the NBA for 13 years. Maybe he can help me get to the NBA. So I think this is a situation where you have a guy like McKie where it could really pay dividends for you. So just to wrap up some of the recruiting conversation here, again, if you have now 2 scholarships taken up for the 2019 class, let's take a look at this. And again, we'll get to this a little bit in the mailbag. You have maybe 1 more left, maybe 2 more left if Quentin Jackson is indeed no longer with the team. We did not see him at the press conference yesterday. Again, Quentin Jackson, a little used backup point guard this year who transferred into the program. Temple, it sounds like, unless something has changed, they'd still like to bring Hakeem Hart from Roman Catholic into the fold. The St. Joe's decommit, or not only decommit, getting out of his national letter of intent. Maybe that 3rd spot goes to him. Jacob Toppin, the player that we've mentioned before, could still be in the mix. An athletic kid from Woodstock Academy, 6'7", 6'8" kid. Probably needs to bulk up a little bit. Maybe he's a candidate for a red shirt. His brother plays at Dayton and has really been an athletic player there. The hope is that he'll be a similar late bloomer, so he could be in the mix. Now Jake Forrester's name shakes loose as another Indiana transfer.
Temple legacy.
Yeah, Temple legacy guy. People have mentioned Clifton Moore's name as a guy that Temple had recruited before. Don't see that happening. So again, I think Aaron and Chris and Monty and Jimmy Fennerty are going to have a lot on their plate in terms of roster management. But again, we'll probably bring more of this stuff up in the mailbag, which we will get to now. So again, a lot of several more mailbag questions to get to here. A lot of content today. Appreciate you guys sticking with us. Hopefully you're enjoying the show here. All right. So again, we got questions coming in from Twitter. We have some stuff coming in from the message boards and some text as well. First question on Twitter comes from David Shamil, DG Shamil. What does Aaron expect the staff and roster to look like next year? Well, we've gotten to that already. Some of that already. Monty Ross announced, as we're recording this on a Wednesday, Monty Ross is officially the associate head coach. Chris Clark is staying. Jimmy Fennerty is your 3rd assistant. Hasn't been formally announced yet, but we've been able to confirm that. Spent the previous 4 seasons at Lafayette. Was a grad manager here. I continue to hear a lot of good things about Jimmy Fennerty. I don't know if you guys feel the same way. I think some people are like, okay, I was hoping for a little bit of a flashier name than Monty Ross, but Aaron trusts him. We've known that Chris is going to be on the staff. Every single person I've talked to about Jimmy says that he works really hard. He's very plugged in. And one person I talked to today said, I think he, at some point down the road, could actually be a head coach. He will work that hard. So that's your staff. We've talked, I don't know, maybe we haven't mentioned it today. I mean, well, of course, Matt mentioned that he talked to Mark Macon. It sounds like Mark's going to have a role on the staff. I do hear Jason Ivey's name mentioned. I'm sure that people are going to have some thoughts on that. I like Jason personally. I haven't talked to him in a long time, but played at Temple. Did have some coaching experience, coached at UMKC with Dean Demopoulos. Did he also spend some time at Hartford with Dan Leibovitz, too?
So, not with Dan Leibovitz, with John Gallagher after Dan Leibovitz.
That's right, with Gallagher. Right? Sorry about that. But he's been out of the game for a while. I don't believe was there yesterday, but you're continuing to hear that he could still be in the mix.
99.9% sure Jason Ivey is going to be on the staff in a non-bench role.
Yeah. Right, similar Macon and Ivey roles uncertain, but yeah, similar to Dave Duke title that I would expect, right?
Yeah. And again, second question here, pretty much the same thing from Burks Owls on the message board. His specific question is overall thoughts on how the staff is rounding up. Well, now that it is pretty much finished, unless there's something we don't know about, What do you guys think? Good staff? Wait and see about what you expect, or anything in between?
It's wait and see. I know a lot of people were expecting, like, okay, well, maybe you hire this AAU guy and you do this and you do that and or you hire Lynn, you get Lynn's kid and stuff like that. I think it's just you got to kind of shift the way you're viewing the staff. Under Dunphy, you were viewing it as, well, you need the assistants to get these kids in the door and do most of the work, and then Fran will be able to kind of close it at the end. And with Aaron, I kind of get the impression that while obviously Jimmy, Chris, and Monte are going to be crucial in getting kids interested, that Aaron's the real calling card of this staff.
Right.
That the situation isn't come play for Temple. For a lot of it, it's come play for Aaron McKie. So I think he's going to be more actively involved in the day-to-day recruiting than Fran necessarily was. And I think with that in mind, then can't say enough positive things about Chris Clark. He's proven it. He's kind of gotten them into North Carolina. State that they really weren't part of before Chris came back to the staff. I've only met Monty Ross once, so I really don't have strong opinions. I think Monty Ross is there more for the X's and O's than he might necessarily be for recruiting, but like we talked about with Strickland, he's been recruiting Strickland as well as McKie. And then Jimmy Finnerty, for lack of a better phrase, is a grinder. So overall, I mean, I think it's an okay staff. It's a decent staff. You brought in 3 guys with D1 assistant experiences. You brought in 5 guys with D1 assistant experiences if you're going to include Macon and Ivy. And you brought in 2 former D1 head coaches. I think in the end, though, this boat goes as far as Aaron can take them.
Yeah, I think this just shows Aaron's banking on himself. I think, as much as, Monty Ross, Chris Clark, they're going to be able to help with recruiting. They're going to be able to help get guys involved, and they're going to be out on the road scouting. In a couple of weeks, the live period starts, so coach will hit the road to evaluate hundreds of players. I think one thing that Jimmy Finnerty brings to the table that's going to be really helpful is when you're at a school like Lafayette, and he talked about this on Create Your Shop podcast with Tyler Laurie and Chris Angelos, 2 former Temple basketball managers. Highly suggest you give that podcast a listen. Jimmy talked probably 30-plus minutes and just about his basketball philosophy. It's 2 years back. The audio might be a little bit hard to listen to, but definitely some good stuff in there from Jimmy. So, if you want more of an idea of his philosophy and everything about the way he thinks, I definitely suggest that you give that a listen. But one thing that you have to deal with at Lafayette is the top 150 kids, top 200 kids. Right. They're off the table. You don't even you don't even need to go see them play. They're not coming to Lafayette. So now it's becomes going to these AAU tournaments and trying to find the diamonds in the rough. So I think that's where Jimmy's going to help you in just talent evaluation. He's going to be going from tournament to tournament and going to be able to see kids and really going to be able to spot kids out and say, hey, I think this kid can help, even though he might not have the big offers and he might not be a 4-star guy. I think that's where Jimmy's going to be able to help you, and he's going to go the extra mile to be able to find that kid. So, and last 4 years, he's learned a lot, I'm sure, in talent evaluation at Lafayette. It's going to be a lot easier to go out there and recruit with the Temple T on his chest. So, I think that's what Jimmy Finnerty's going to bring to the table is just a good talent evaluator. Obviously, everything's going to be checked in with Aaron, and Aaron's going to have to approve of all that. But I think he's going to help you maybe find a guy that's a little bit off the radar, but, maybe 3 years down the road you say, hey, that kid Jimmy found, hey, he turned out to be a pretty good player.
And I think I like the fact that they're taking a risk and that they're getting someone young, and it's nothing stale about this move, especially.
And I think, again, a couple of people I've talked to about Finnerty, 2 people not connected with Temple have both said, he's good. He's really good. And again, as Kyle had said, I think if you bring in a bit of a flashier name as an associate head coach, and again, this really isn't meant as a knock on Monte, I think maybe people don't hone in as much on this third assistant, but end of the day, if you can get Hakeem Hart, if you get you get a good start on the 2020 class, whether it's a Taj Sweet, whether it's Lynn's kid, although I have no clue where that stands. I don't even know how likely that is.
I think Jaleel White might be a little bit more likely.
Yeah.
Point guard.
But if you get Taj Sweet and Jaleel White and you start getting in with some 2020 kids, people aren't going to care. It's going to be a tribute to the staff. Again, as Kyle said, I think you make a great point. Or you mentioned it too, Matt. Like, Aaron's really banking on himself. Aaron's going to be the closer. Aaron is the name recognition you maybe didn't have. And if everyone else is doing their part, like Aaron said, like most people have said, winning cures everything. Next question. from Twitter at Dr. Drew, who has changed his Twitter name to Christmas is Canceled. That's a sickening thought to me. Anyway, do you have a sense for what Dunphy's reputation was with Philadelphia area recruits and why he wasn't able to get them? Do local high school coaches have a bad perception of Temple, or was it Dunphy? What is McKie up against in that regard as he tries to lure local prospects? Great question. Something we've talked about before, but I want to hear. I have my thoughts on this, but I want to hear what you guys think of this.
I'm sure my thoughts echo yours on this. I think Temple was always kind of seen as the girl next door, where you could kind of take your chances on other schools, and worst case scenario, you could always come back to Temple if it didn't work out. And I don't think there was ever a situation where a local high school coach was like, "Yo, I hate Fran Dunphy," or this. No, anybody that's ever met Fran Dunphy is going to have positive things to say about Fran Dunphy. As cliche as it is, he really is that type of person. I think it's just they realized that, hey, there wasn't any sense of urgency. I could always find my way back to Temple. I'd rather go outside the area and find my way back.
Yeah. Right. I think recruits pretty much knew that the door up at Pearson McGonigal to their practice facility, which is a really nice practice facility, it was always open pretty much. And, whether you're the Morris twins, whether you're Quiet Green, whether you're Nasir Brooks, who we just saw at
Jordan, yeah.
The guys can come back when they're home, and they can work out there, and they can work out with the guys that are currently playing at Temple. They can work out with some NBA guys, some Temple guys that come back from overseas. And they just knew that was already there. So where's the sense of urgency? So, if I can come back here and work out at Temple's gym all the time when I'm home, and I can go to Kentucky, well, I'm probably going to go to Kentucky.
Right.
So, I think the sense of urgency, like Kyle said, it wasn't always there. And it's not a knock on Fran Dunphy in that, he's, disliked. I think he's as well liked as anybody in the area. But, to be like, okay, I'm going to send my kid to Temple for 4 years and have him go play in the NBA, that was, I don't know if that was always there for Temple. I don't know if people were saying that. So now, you got to overcome that, and you got to show kids, hey, you can come here and we're going to send you to the NBA. So that's what Aaron's going to be facing right now, but I don't think it's like, hey, Temple has a bad reputation. I think, the high school coaches, the recruits know the facilities are as good as anywhere in the area, probably better than a lot of these area schools.
Sure.
So, I think the recruits like Temple, that, they like the way it's grown, but Aaron's just going to have to sell them on the fact that, they can go to the NBA, they can be a really good player here at Temple, and they don't need to leave to go to Kentucky. They don't need to leave to go to these other schools, because that's just the biggest thing he's going to be fighting.
And just to add on to that, I remember we had Del Greco Wilson on the pod last May, and he basically said the same thing, that talking to these recruits, Temple's just not exciting anymore, and they have the facilities that they should be able to compete for these recruits. So it was definitely more of the current administration there. It wasn't as much about Temple as a program.
Yeah, and again, you guys have hit on most of this. Kyle said, you guys have all said, people respect Fran, and it was never this, you never got this sense like, oh man, the guy's completely overwhelmed, he doesn't know what he's doing. It wasn't that. As Kyle said, it was more like the girl next door vibe. Like, hey, if I have a kid in Philly, and I could go in a bunch of different directions with this, but if I have a kid in Philly and he's got a chance to get out of the city, see something else, I'm going to instruct him to see something else, and if it doesn't work out there, Temple will be his safe landing spot. And that happens for a number of different reasons. Now, what is Aaron up against? I think Aaron, and he's kind of alluded to this at times when I've talked to him, would he love to get kids from Philly Shore? Is he going to continue to recruit kids from Philly Shore? But again, I think they're going to look all over the place, South Jersey, North Jersey, wherever, and just say we need to get difference-making recruits wherever we can get them. And if Philly wants to get on board, great, they'll get on board. But I don't think he is going to... he is a nice guy, but I also don't think he's going to suffer fools kindly, because we've been here the whole time. Right. But now things are a little different. Now, you want to get on board, we'd love to have you. But if not, we don't want to be your safety school anymore. This is different. And I think that's kind of the attitude that you really need to have.
Look, the girl next door might be wife material, but if the prom queen's asking you to meet her behind the Wegmans, you're going to meet her behind the Wegmans. You got to take the chance.
And there's Kyle's gem for the day. Last week it was him going after Jim Boeheim, having a bunch of stuff bleeped out. Now it's
like a month ago.
Yeah. Now it's Kyle talking about supermarket flings. Which what made you think of Wegmans?
It's a great grocery store. You got to build your own six-pack now, but you got to go through your own different exit because Pennsylvania is so goddamn behind the scenes, archaic when it comes to liquor laws.
Yeah, we live in the 1700s.
Pretty much.
Wegmans is my mom's happy place. She said it a billion times. She's like, home, that's all right, but Wegmans.
It's like home, Graham's there. Wegmans, Graham's rarely there.
did live in this. What if we did live in the 1700s and next week we come in dressed in period costume and we talk?
I mean, have you seen 76? That's built for horse and buggy, not for cars.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. All right. Good stuff, guys. Now, several more questions to get to. Hootie Hoot from the message board asks a three-parter here. With Buzz Williams leaving his gig at Virginia Tech, do we have a chance at re-recruiting 2019 guard Anthony Harris, who McKie was targeting this past class? So let's handle that one first.
Haven't heard his name.
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe Buzz takes him to A&M.
Yeah, I mean, I think if, he's a four-star kid from Paul VI. That's a school that Aaron got. He hasn't got anyone out of Paul VI yet, but it's a school that he's been to several times and a school that he's tried to recruit. Now, hey, if Anthony Harris comes to Temple, Temple's going to listen. As Kyle said, if we heard his name mentioned, we have not. Things are fluid. That could always change.
When you open up if I had a kid that was a basketball prospect, I would tell him to commit in the fall, knowing that you're going to reopen in April. Because you're going to get offers to these kids that they would have never gotten in the fall.
That's like, and to kind of sort of stay on this topic, that's why if they end up with Tai Strickland, and as Matt said, if Texas Tech is on him, or even if Texas Tech is sniffing around on him, and you end up getting Tai Strickland over Texas Tech, or Texas Tech, maybe he doesn't formally offer, but they're sniffing around, then that does give you an indication that they are starting to get into the bigger pool and actually like swimming in the bigger pool as opposed to just drowning in it as they have in the past, like losing out on a Daniel Sheffield, losing out on a Phil Booth or some of these other guys. And as you said, in the spring, programs like we got that one scholarship to fill, and we're going to be less stringent. We're like, it's just a grab and go type of thing. So if you can beat out some of these programs, I think that is pretty impressive. Second and third part of his question, are there any players that will likely leave the team, such as any of the Moores, and what was the most impressive about McKie's presser? So, number two, we've talked about this already. We did not see Quentin Jackson there yesterday. Nothing official there, but if there is a name that we've heard, possibly as a guy not coming back, it might be him. Matt said earlier in the show that, sounds like Alani Moore and Damian Moore will probably stay. They were both there yesterday. In the clip that we played earlier, Shizz did say, hey, man, I still think Alani can make an impact next year. We've kind of talked about this, or I think we've talked about, if Alani leaves and you have a chance to bring in, Tai Strickland or like a bunch of talented guys come your way, okay, yeah, maybe it makes sense to squeeze them. But otherwise, I don't know that you just easily dispose of either one of these guys if you don't have plausible backups for
I think
him.
it'd be different if Strickland was going to get a waiver and was eligible next year,
Right.
but he's not. So I don't think you want to enter next year thinking like, well, our only real point guard here is Josh Pierre-Louis. Granted, you can get minutes out of Nate Pierre-Louis, Damian Dunn, Quentin Rose, but I think Alani's a point guard, and that's not something they have a lot of on this roster.
Question number three again. What was the most impressive thing about McKie's presser? Covered that already. I just think he was very self-aware and he talked about big goals.
Yeah, and he was genuine, and he's the Philadelphia success story.
Next question comes from Herd Owl 51 on the message board. Is McKie recruiting any big men? If so, do you have any names besides Damon Carrigan, who Matt talked to a little bit more than a month ago, the JUCO big man? Not sure if they are even recruiting him anymore.
Yeah, I reached out to him. Didn't hear back yesterday, but there's a report out there that he's going to take a visit to Rhode Island this month. Rhode Island's recruiting one of his teammates at a junior college in Texas, so I don't, and he's a Boston guy, so I think Rhodey might be in there for him, and I think Temple is looking elsewhere if they do fill a scholarship with a big man. It looks like that they're going to go elsewhere for him.
Next question from one of our newer message board posters, S. Kucher, Kucher. Who has the better chance to win? That's an interesting question. Who has the better chance to win the AAC championship next year? Temple football or Temple basketball?
That's a good question. I'll say football. I think you might have a down year, even though Wimbush transferred to UCF. I think UCF might have a down year. USF's in a little bit of a rebuilding pattern.
Mm-hmm.
I think they have a decent chance at winning that division, and then once you get to a conference championship game, you never know.
Right. I just think, the way the basketball conference is set up, like I think you have teams that
Right.
are probably more so on the rise. Like I think Houston, they're going to lose some pieces. Maybe they lose their coach, but they're still going to have talent next year. I think Wichita State could be good. I mean, there's going to be some teams in the mix there. Memphis is obviously on the rise. So basketball, I mean, they're going to have plenty of competition. Not that football, is going to be a slouch of a conference, but I think that conference is pretty wide open right now with Mackenzie Milton hurt and all that. So, I would say football has the better chance, although basketball will be in the mix. I don't know how it's going to fall just because, there's 4 or 5 teams that could definitely be tournament teams out of the American next year.
Yeah, I think both will end up pretty upwards in the conference. But I think especially with James Wiseman going to Memphis, that I think there's just so many great teams in the AAC for basketball. So I'd say football is a good shot.
Yeah, again, there's and again, Johnny Dawkins isn't going anywhere. You got good coaches.
You never know. It's April 3rd.
Sure, but I mean, if they
the Virginia
weather,
Tech job just came open.
Sure, yeah, good point. But I agree with you. I think football is maybe not that it's quite this simple, but maybe a really a good grad transfer or JUCO back away from being a fairly complete team. And I think a lot of these coaches have come in and said, Rod Carey and his staff included, saying like, hey, we're taking over a pretty good program. We're not rebuilding a program, and have more or less said, as long as we get out of the way, push the right buttons, they have a chance to be really good. So I would trend toward football as well. With an eye on basketball, they got a shot, but I think in basketball it's a little bit more of an uphill battle because of the talent and the coaching prowess in the conference. Next question, this is another 3-parter from our friend Jack Fatika, the I Believe guy on Twitter. Number 1, looks like McKie has filled out his staff in a similar way that Fran Dunphy did, with people close to him. Granted, they are not Ivy/Patriot level guys, but curious on your thoughts. And will Aaron have a long or short leash with his staff? Meaning, will he make changes if it's not working? So that's question number 1 from Jack. What do you think?
We already answered this.
Yeah. Again, we've talked about this several times before. Aaron is a little bit more like John Chaney and Fran Dunphy than people would think. He's very loyal. He hired Monty Ross in the release that came out today. He's like, I've known Monty pretty much my whole life. He wants people around him that he trusts and will work hard. Will it pay off? We'll see. I'm not entirely surprised. I'm not saying that this time last year we're like, oh, Monty Ross. Now, not long after that, we started hearing Monty's name. But what do I think of it? Again, wait and see. Again, if they get good players, it's not going to matter. There's always been a little bit more of a buzz. I get where Jack's going with that. I don't. We've talked about a million times before. We don't expect anybody to be wowed by Jimmy Fenner's name or Monty Ross's name, but if they do their job, no one's going to really give a damn, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would just remind Jack, like, in college coaching, this is how it goes. Like, you hire people that you know, people that you're familiar with, for the most part. I mean, you got to hire people that you trust. And, Aaron hired Monty Ross, who he's known for a very long time. He's worked with Chris Clark the last 4 years. And obviously, he worked with Jimmy when Jimmy was a grad assistant here, and they overlapped for about a year. So it's natural, and it's pretty regular across all of college basketball and across college football and across all college sports for coaches to hire people that they know. And if he would have went out and hired an AAU guy or a high school coach, maybe that would have made waves. But Aaron might not know that guy really, like he knows Chris, or So it's just how it kind of goes. And if you look at most programs across the country, most coaches hire people that they know, and that's just kind of how that's the natural progression.
And like we said earlier, it really seems like he's banking on himself. So if things aren't working out, it's not going to be the chemistry between coaches. I think Aaron's going to probably be looking at himself with things like that.
Mm-hmm. Question number 2 was great to hear Aaron articulate his vision for the identity/culture of the program. How important do you think that is in terms of recruiting? Barry.
That's your main selling point if you're Aaron McKie, is the identity and culture of the program and the fact that I've been where you've been. So I think it's incredibly important.
Yeah, I mean, when you're talking to Josh Pierre-Louis last week, and Josh is telling you things, about like relating to a story that we're going to hear as much in the past, and that's big. Mm-hmm. So if Josh Pierre-Louis says that, someone else reads it, maybe I can relate to him. Maybe I can relate to him, but I'm in New York, or I'm in Dallas, Texas, or I'm in Houston, or I'm in Cleveland, Ohio. That might start to resonate. So, again, articulating his vision of the program, not just his story, just saying we want to win a national championship. Again, I know after a while that will pass, and people are going to be in the show me state of mind. But just hearing that gives people something sort of intangible to cling to. So I think it's very important for recruiting. Third and final question from Jack. I know you don't get to many basketball games as true fans, but if you did, lay out your perfect game day. Include pregame ritual, where your season seats would be, and what's your postgame ritual. This can or should include campus locations and non-campus locations. I'm clearly excited about basketball again.
Yeah, don't get to any Temple basketball games as fans, but basketball games in general, like with the Sixers, I'm a big go into South Philly, drink there, then find your way down to the game guy. I hate going to the game, like for basketball at least, showing up 2 hours beforehand and just sitting in the Wells Fargo Center. So I'm probably not showing up at a basketball game until 15, 20 minutes before tip-off. But, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the type of guy that might even show up at halftime. I don't know. If I'm watching it, if I'm watching.
See, that I can't do. It's a 2-hour ordeal. You're wasting an hour of it already.
Well, I tried to go to one game as a fan this past year. It was a Penn game, actually. Believe it or not, the line was out the door so far that I had to go to the horse to watch the first half because otherwise I was going to miss the whole first half standing in a line on lined up down Montgomery. So my ideal pregame ritual would probably be. Not a huge fan of the horse, honestly. I'd go to Maxie's or Pub Web. Overpriced at the horse, not worth it. So probably find me at Maxie's or Pub Web, have a few cold beverages, and then make your way over right around tip-off, I would say. And that's the perfect setup. But I think Maxie's is the best spot on campus, honestly.
I'm recently 21, so I'm still kind of learning the whole scope of things. But I do like Maxie's a lot. I would do that. If it's a noon game, I'm not up until 11 o'clock.
Real quick, Maxie, Grant. Graham. I called you Greg, Grant, Graham. Graham tried claiming the Maxie's Pizza.
Oh, no.
That Philly-style pizza is better than Maxie's Pizza.
Like, I honestly think, I'm so confused that people eat both those slices of the pizza. Maxie's is good because, and I'm going to get killed.
Because they don't just offer cheese and pepperoni.
Maxie's is good because it has variety. If you're thinking, I want mac and cheese pizza, then yes, Maxie's is great. But most of the time, I just want a sliced pepperoni pizza, and it's not even comparable. How bad Maxie's pepperoni pizza is compared to Philly style.
Completely disagree.
We're not even paint chips as a kid. We still having lead paint on the walls. Like, what was going on?
The crust is better. There's a sweetness in the sauce. It's bigger. It's cheaper. It tastes better. I don't understand it. I
respectfully disagree with you 150%.
Maxie's falls apart in your hand.
No, it doesn't. You must have had a bad slice one day. Not even close. Not even close. For me, I think it's about hanging out with fans before and after the game. Whether you go to a place like Pub Web. There are a ton of good places nearby in Fairmount. It's fun. You do think about that because before I started covering the team for the Temple News when I was in college, it was a big deal. It was a big event. The line was wrapped around McGonigal Hall and it was fun. What are we going to do before the game? What are we going to do after the game to go commiserate and talk about stuff, decompress? And so if I were to do that now, before and after the game, it's fun. I mean, tailgating for basketball isn't necessarily an outside thing unless somebody wants to make it an outside thing in the future. I mean, you got so many good places around, and I think you want to find a spot after where you can get something to eat and just break everything down. Whether that's somewhere downtown, somewhere in Fairmount. All my experiences at Pub Web have been pretty cool. The horse isn't bad. I mean, you guys have here. You have more options than I had when I was in college because I'm 187 years old.
Very old.
Very old. Decrepit.
Also, I would just add to it, where would my seats be? My dad had season tickets for a while, section 106, and that's like the corner. And the corner seats at Lee, of course, are really good. If you sit first level corner, you save a little bit of money, but you're not behind the basket. You're not mid-court either. It's kind of that in-between where you save a little bit of money and you don't sit mid-court. But that's a really good view. I like 106 and those corner seats.
Next question comes from Lone Star 2000. One football question on the day. Since there is no spring game on Trey and White Day, what will the format be of the practice session? Will fans be able to view the entire session? Any special nuances to be added for fan interest? Will there be access to players following the session? Yeah, I think we've talked about this before. We'll talk about it again. This is our opinion, but I don't give a damn if there's no spring game. This is going to be an open practice that is open to the fans and the media, the entirety of it. Think of you're a Temple football fan, and this is the equivalent of going to watch the Eagles when they were at Lehigh or down at NovaCare. Mm-hmm. You get access to an entire practice. There's going to be an autograph session after. We will get access to Rod Carey and several players. There's going to be a lot of access. The difference is we're not going to be basically talking about a meaningless game with inflated stats. With all due respect to Jagger Gardner and Jaden Blue, statistically speaking, they were the two best players last year. Neither one of them were huge factors. We've talked about before, Myron Miles and all these guys. I think you're going to see more meaningful stuff. Will they show their entire hand with things? No, because college coaches, for lack of a better term, do send bird dog scouts out to spring games and spring practices to see what they can find out. But it's going to be
what a job. I need you to go to fly this city for these 3 days and just watch them run like the wing tee.
You want me to go to Akron and watch this? How much you paying me?
Keep in mind,
this is flight night. That's what it is. This is going to be Temple flight night.
Yeah,
that's fine.
Yeah. Keep in mind that they don't have any part of the blocking or the fencing is just open at Edward Wilson right now, so you can look in and watch practice from the street whenever you want.
Come on down, 10th and Diamond.
Yeah, I mean, there are people. I've just when we show up to cover the practice, people are like, "Hey, what's going on? Is there a game over here tonight?" Like, and people are just looking through the fence right now. So that's interesting. But yeah, if you want to really see what's going on, you could show up at.
They don't check for press passes.
This is not. I don't. Again, I get any change fans are gonna be like, what's going on? I don't. I think this is a complete non-factor. I think fans will enjoy it just as much. I've been told that they're probably going to add even more in terms of options for fans.
T-shirt cannon, just boom, boom, boom.
That'd be great.
Just pelting them.
A few more questions to get into here. Next one comes from the message board. Kind of like this one. This is interesting too. It comes from TU_1834 from the message board. Which Temple player not currently or about to be on the staff that you've covered would make the best head coach?
Oh God, people are going to hate this. Everyone's favorite whipping boy. TJ DeLeo might be the best one, I think. TJ had that type of personality, that type of work ethic. I could see TJ being a decent coach.
Mm-hmm. I could see TJ. I could see Ryan Brooks eventually
back to playing in France again, right?
I believe he is.
He came home for a while, I think.
I saw him at McGillen's probably in December, so he was home then. But he's back overseas now. But when he does decide to retire from playing, I'm sure he'd be a guy that would certainly be in the grad assistant conversation to start off.
Yeah, I've only really covered the team for the last couple of years. Is there anyone on this team that you think would make a good head coach?
On this current team?
On this current team. I'm just trying to think.
I mean, I think if you fast forward 20 years from now, after his career, well, Nate, sure. I was with current roster, I'll say, including this last year.
Yeah,
I could see if Shizz wanted to. Shizz has that personality to be a coach.
He's not as vocal, but I feel like he's just so smart. When he talks to the game.
Nate's got personality and abundance, right? So you would hope that he could be a good assistant coach recruiting.
I think the one guy, feel free to disagree with me, I think the one guy we might be leaving out is the guy who's actually trying to do it right now, which is Luis Guzman, who came in, played a couple different places professionally, was trying to play. And this is no knock on him, just was really hustling anywhere where he could go, and came in as a grad assistant, then was coaching at Ryder, and you find out that was not a paid position. As far as I know, he was coaching for free at Ryder, and is now coaching Monroe Junior College up in New York. So he's trying, he's doing it, and he's really tried to put in the work. He also does this summer basketball tournament, and I'm going to forget the name of it, but it's on this huge summer tournament up in the Bronx, and is the organizer of it, and it goes really well. It's not an AAU tournament, but he's really put in the work and put in the time. If you weren't, if a spot shook loose, maybe not. I don't know. I think he's a guy who's doing. I could see him getting into coaching, and he really tries. He really tries hard to network, but he's actually putting his money where his mouth is, and is trying to take a job wherever he could. So I could see him down the line too.
We also forgot to mention Dutch Gately, who's an assistant with the Hornets now.
He was with the Spurs for a while.
He's with an NBA. He's an NBA assistant, former grad assistant under Dumpf, and obviously played a year as a grad transfer from Monmouth. So as far as former players with actual coaching experience go, he's probably at the highest level right now.
Yeah, one other guy I think of, and I don't know if he's ever going to get into coaching. If it's someone I've covered, so I go back to the '90s. Maybe someone like Rashid Brokenborough. Rashid's transformation here was really fun to see. He was such a painfully shy kid when he came in from University City. Graduates in 4 years. Never played in the NBA, but was a big-time recruit for John Chaney out of University City High School. I could see him coaching. Talking to Marc Jackson yesterday. I don't know that Marc has. I'm gonna guess. I actually did not ask him this yesterday. think they might have floated the possibility out there, like, hey, you interested in joining the staff? Marc's running his own AAU program, but Marc really thinks the game through, talks the game through, likes coaching kids. I think right now he's doing it on the AAU side of things, but I could absolutely see Marc getting involved as well. I mean, he sees the game through as an analyst at the professional level, so he's another name I would toss in there as well. We have our first question coming in from, we put out there on Instagram stories today. We have a question there.
Yes, you can follow AlScoop on Instagram, AlScoop_com on Instagram. And from Andrew Goldstein, he says, does the Josh Pierre-Louis signing keep them out of the Tai Strickland sweepstakes, which we talked about a little bit earlier?
No.
Yeah, we talked about this. I think they would take both.
Yeah, they would take both.
And more importantly, also, can Johnny speak on the closing of the London Grill? Share some memories of his personal peach pit.
Yeah, so Andrew Goldstein, we've had Andrew on the podcast before. He's a friend of mine. He's a comedy writer up in New York. Does a podcast called Sorry I've Been So Busy with Matt Goldich, who is one of the writers on Late Night with Seth Meyers. Definitely check out their podcast. They get a ton of big-time guests on. So Andrew's very funny. Our friendship goes back to college. So London Grill, or London, was right there at the corner, 23rd and Fairmount, closing down. That was basically a spot where we would go to for happy hours, but when I was covering high school football in Vineland, New Jersey, and parts unknown out there, I would have to work on Fridays. My friends would go there for a happy hour, be several beers in, forget that I had to work, and be like, literally get a call, where are you? Imagine me on a high school football field somewhere in South Jersey on like these little company Nokia phones that we had. And like, where are you? Where's Buna? Where's Bridgeton? Why are you at these places? I'm like, guys, I have a job.
Why did you pick up the phone though?
Because you couldn't. There was no caller ID. I'm talking like this is like 1999, 2000.
Oh man, it's 5:45 on a Friday. Who always calls me drunk at 5:45 on a Friday?
You never know.
It
could be your editor. It could be your editor. You don't
Daily
know.
Press.
You couldn't screen calls back then. So I don't know. That's oh god. It's a fun place. I mean, I lived right on the 700 block of 23rd Street there. That was a really cool place to be. I love that he calls it our personal peach pit. Little 90s TV reference there. So, but yeah, that was a really good spot. I'm sorry to see it closing down too. So appreciate the question, buddy. Wait, maybe one more here. I think this one's from Pat Egan. I don't think we've had any more come in on Twitter, although I'll double check here. This one from Pat Egan, again from the Fanatic. With Nate's brother in the fold and then possibly dipping into the transfer market, what's the scholarship situation looking like for next year and the year after? So we'll talk about that one first. Again, for 2019, assuming there is no roster movement, they have 3 scholarships. Just hit the reset button on that. Those 3 scholarships, 2 of the 3 are taken up with Damian Dunn coming in, with Josh Pierre-Louis coming in. Maybe that 3rd scholarship goes to Hakeem Hart if they can get Hakeem Hart. Or maybe, as we said before, maybe it goes to Jacob Toppin, or maybe it goes to someone like, I don't know. Who else would be in the mix? Why am I...
Did you say Strickland?
Mark Strickland's kid.
Tai Strickland.
No, I said Strickland. Who's the other legacy guy from Indiana?
Jake Forrester.
Jake Forrester, maybe. And then for 2020, you got 6 scholarships. So you got a lot to get into there. Taj, Tweet, Jaleel White, and all those guys. So that's where the scholarship situation stands. And second part of Pat's question, best and worst part, covering the team or other, of these 3 coaches' tenures. Although he lists more than...
He lists 7.
He lists 7. Chaney, Dunphy, Golden, Adazio, Rule, Collins, and Diaz.
You're the only one who can talk about Chaney.
Best part of the Chaney tenure, 2 things: an electricity around the program, and he was an amazing soundbite. And he would invite you, if you asked, if the time was right, he would invite you into his office after a game and would talk your ear off for 20 minutes and tell you these amazing stories. That was the best part of his tenure. Dunphy, go around the table.
I'll say the best part of Dunphy's tenure was they did have a flair for knocking off some big names.
Yep.
Duke, Kansas, Nova when they were number 2 in the nation. So there were some big wins there in the regular season.
Dunphy, I would just say, I mean, and people have heard this a lot, but the fact that he would legitimately treat the guy who cleans the floors the same as his lead assistant or his best player, it didn't really matter. He knew everyone's name. You know, if he met you once, he remembered your name, and you know, if he saw you again, he would shake your hand and say, "Hey, how you doing?" So it would be, you know, I think that was always cool. Just, you know, how personable he was, how approachable he was. always willing to give anybody the time of day. I know people hear it. I know it might sound corny, but it's just the truth. I mean, that's how he was, and that's how he still is.
Same deal with that. Like, I wasn't asking questions when I was doing social media. I really only met him once early in the year, and he remembered my name, and I thought that was great. And he always just would give you a good quote after the game. He was never going to be a Boeheim that would be walking out angrily. It was always something that was very, scheduled and perfect.
By contrast, I've known Grant for over a year, and I forgot his name 20 minutes ago.
Grant, exactly. Ulysses S. Grant. I mean, in addition to what you guys were saying about Dunphy, the obvious stuff about him, really, again, yesterday, picks up our tab, a very Fran Dunphy thing to do.
Sure.
I want to give the guys due credit. He had one down year after he took over, replacing a legend, and then, boom, 3 straight Atlantic 10 tournament championships after that. That's no small feat. Was he able to keep up in the American as much? No. Did he fall short in the NCAA tournament several times? Yes. But, it started with recruiting. He gets, now people want to say, Ryan Brooks, he gets him late in the signing period. Ryan Brooks was a big piece of what they did defensively, hit some big shots. Lavoy Allen, his signature recruit. You get Lavoy Allen, boom, 4 straight NCAA tournament appearances, 3 straight Atlantic 10 conference championships. I don't know that people expected him to clean it up that quickly, and he did. Those were some really fun times to cover. The tournament down in Atlantic City, fun conference tournament to cover, fun place to be.
Back when the Wild Wild West bar at Bally's was
you and
the Wild
Nick
Wild
Menta
West
really
bar at
love
the Bally's, now it's all bougie and they got a stage, you can do all this stuff. No, I want to eat a chicken sandwich
check
at
out
3
like 2 in the morning. You'd be like, no, you go to bed. We're Wild Wild West. Mike Mudrick, our former assistant editor. Mike, hope you're listening. Those were fun times because you were covering a really good team. The league was still pretty good. Boardwalk Hall was awesome. That's what I really enjoyed the most from the Fran Dunphy era. Al Golden.
Some of the things he'd say.
Yeah.
Ken's got a good job down there. Just watches the boats, doesn't have to throw the ball. Al was very meticulous, but he had random quotes. He'd be like, what the hell are you talking about? And he turned the program around. He took the worst program in college football and turned it into a 9-win team, and he deserves credit for that.
Yeah, I mean, anybody who is my age who covered college football in the city and covered Temple football just saw how embarrassingly bad it was. And you're like, wow. 1 minute, the coach, Ron Dickerson, is quitting after a game, claiming his job back the next day. They used to blow games in a number of different ways when they were in the Big East. Al Golden had such a monumental pile of crap to clean up, and he worked his ass off, really worked his ass off in terms of how he sent emails to how he recruited to everything. Just being around him, he gave me a lot of access to the program and gave me a lot of his time. I'm sure he knew that it behooved to involve media members to tell his story. I get that. But the guy let me in on a lot of stuff, and he was fun as hell to cover, and I have give him a ton of credit. You look at that first recruiting class he had, the number of guys that he hit on that contributed to the program. Just seeing what he did. They get to the Eagle Bank Bowl in 2009. So many people walking around in what looked like a Soviet block, like outside of RFK Stadium. It's cold. The weather's not great. And all these people walking around saying, like, I can't believe Temple's in a bowl game. This is amazing. And it was cold as hell, but they loved it. And that's a tribute to Al Golden. Steve Adazio.
Him pounding on the table.
Got to steady the boat. Steady the boat. We're going to pound that ball now.
The one I always do is I know linebackers. Linebackers go, and they go, and they go, and you just make grunts and make hand motions. Other than that, a lot of the stories you heard from people interacting with them off the record still fuel my go-to jokes. And he ran the ball enough to get Bernard Pierce in the NFL.
I know this isn't Temple, but what's better than this? Guys being
dudes being dudes.
Guys being dudes.
Matt Ryan. That's dude.
Him asking him for a Italian food recommendation when they were playing up at UConn the one year. He's like, oh, we like a good plate of macaroni. I'm like, no, looking for a taco. Yeah, he was always fine with me.
Fine. I never had better.
Won a bowl game, but yeah, he was into being Steve. So a lot of sound bites. Matt Rule.
He took the next step. Mm-hmm. He got game day into Philadelphia. He got game day at Temple. He took that football program to the step that a lot of people didn't see possible.
Agree with all that. Very self-aware. Really embraced Philadelphia. To this day, the guy still misses Philly. Still misses this area. Still vacations in Cape May, but really, truly got Philadelphia. Got Temple. Caught the bug at some point. There's the story of him driving up from from North Carolina, from that job at Western Carolina, going up to Al Golden and saying, I want to work for you, and then not hearing anything back. He's coached almost literally every position. He was really a big part of what Al Golden did, and then for him to be able to see the fruits of that labor, getting game day in, as you said, winning a conference championship. Guy did a lot, but really embraced Temple, embraced the city along the way. Had so many good conversations with him. He, like Al, really let me in on a lot of what was going on in the program. Got to see what was going on behind the scenes. So enjoed that.
I'll just quickly say too, people in my year, like that game day, that whole season meant like a lot for for people wanting to go to Temple. Like I think they had a record number of Temple, people going to Temple from my high school that year because just people saw it and it was cool again, and that was huge. I think.
Mm-hmm. Jeff Collins.
I kind of honestly, I know a lot of some of the old bump on the log, old fans will hate this. I liked what he did with social media. You had more access to the program than you ever really did before. Mm-hmm. The cheesesteaks with coaches, stuff like that. That he just took a different angle. Jeff, for one thing, you want to tell Jeff is confident being Jeff, and that is what it is. I mean, a lot of people he rubbed the wrong way, and he's comfortable in his own skin.
Yeah, I will say first off, I think what he did with the all access media days was really cool. Just he opened up his first spring. He did this, and then he did it again last year, where he let 30 media members or so come in, sit in on meetings. We get there at 6 a.m. right around the time the players do, and everything's open. We get to sit in on meetings. We get to hear Chris Weezan, yell at the guys about a missed assignment from the previous practice or whatever it may have been. So that access was really cool. Worst part, would I say? I would say had to be, especially at the beginning, he didn't want to talk about injuries, and you would go in there, and you'd ask about why is Tyler Grainer on crutches? We saw him walking around on crutches in the facility. And he would just kind of stare at you, kind of look at you.
Do I talk about injuries, Matt?
Yeah, and you couldn't even get him to say anything. Maybe he'd just stare you down for a second, and that would be that. So, and then he got better as time went on, but that was one thing that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. I think it rubbed some other people the wrong way, and I'm sure if he looked back at it, maybe he would have done things a little bit differently.
I would just say, when they lost to UConn and homecoming at home, I thought if you were to tell me then they were going to win a bowl game that season, I would have said you're crazy. So just being able to kind of win a bowl game that year, I think was important, and just keep the team afloat when it looked
always
like they
positive.
were going to. Yeah, it never really was bad under him.
I think Jeff, and one of the things I think of with him, and you guys have alluded to this, is I think he was genuine. He was hokey. Yes, some people, anytime when it was convenient for fans to say, oh, they lost because maybe he was too into social media. I think the guy, did he hire Andrew Thacker, guys like Nathan Burton with an eye on maybe building an empire at Georgia Tech? Yeah, absolutely. Kudos to him if that's really where he wanted to be. I might have done the same thing, but I think for as long as he was at Temple, I think he truly enjoyed being at Temple. I think if it was any other job, I think he's still here. I think he truly embraced it. He truly embraced Philly. It really, as hokey as it sounds, I think he really, truly did care about his players, and the guy worked nonstop. It was always good to me, and yeah, he went from being like, I don't want to tell you anything, to then he became a little bit more of an open book, so I enjoyed my time with him. Manny Diaz, oh boy.
Diaz is on this list, but Carey is not.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
it's funny.
He brought Fran Brown back.
And he brought in Gabe Infante.
Yeah.
And then he took Dave Feely.
Yeah. I mean, he brought you Gabe Infante. He brought Fran Brown back. Zach Gelb and I have enjoyed talking about this. You look back at it now and think, man, the man didn't even get his suit tailored before the press conference, and probably you look back at it now and think like he might have even truly known that he wasn't here. He's
not as smart as he thinks he is, so he's not consistent enough to get his story straight.
Oh,
so many people have contradicted the way things went down, and it is what it is.
Yeah, a big program like Miami, I'll say this, they don't just make that decision and then 12 hours later, or less than 12 hours later, say, hey, we're hiring Manny Diaz. There was some behind-the-scenes work days before, maybe even weeks before, who, Manny hasn't been able to get his story straight when he speaks publicly. So who really knows what went on behind the scenes there?
Pat says there's a real sports story out of Manny Diaz. Haven't seen that yet. So, well, that'll do it. The very, very, very packed episode of The Scoop today. Appreciate you guys sticking with us. Again, tons of great audio to listen to. Now the Aaron McKie era has started. We will continue to cover spring football, any recruiting updates on both sides of the aisle there, football and basketball. Check back with us. We will talk to you guys soon.
Bye.